All right, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling Western men, specifically what they're looking for in a relationship.
Ooh, interesting topic.
Our source,
Wow.
a YouTube video by the Filipina Pea. It's called What a Man Wants, a Filipina's Guide to the Western Man.
Okay, so we're getting a Filipino woman's perspective on this.
Exactly. Her channel's geared towards Filipinas interested in dating, foreign men. So it's like a window into how certain cultures view relationships, not like a universal rule book or anything.
Right. Makes sense.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, what stood out to you from the video? Like, what are we really unpacking today?
Well, what struck me is how the Filipina piece starts off talking about these seemingly universal needs, like companionship, loyalty, respect.
Yeah, those seem pretty standard, right?
Yeah, intimacy too. But then she adds in all these cultural complexities, especially the potential for clashes between Filipino and Western values.
Okay, let's get into that clash then. Family ties, right? She mentions that's a big one.
Huge. Many Filipinas, they prioritize family above almost everything else.
Whereas Westerners, I guess, see the couple as, like, the main unit.
Exactly. And that difference, it all comes down to those deep-rooted cultural values.
Okay. Like what?
Well, Western societies, especially those with Enlightenment roots, they really value individualism, self-reliance.
Independence.
Yeah. So the couple, they become this separate unit, that whole my home is my castle mentality.
Right.
Now, Filipino culture, it leans more collectivist. It's about interdependence, family as the central support.
So are we talking like constant family drop-in?
That's the classic example. Imagine a Filipina, she's used to her entire extended family popping in whenever.
Versus a Westerner who needs like a week's notice before anyone touches his fridge.
Exactly. It sounds funny. But these differences, they cause friction. Everything from decision-making to who handles what responsibilities.
The Filipina Pea, she also stresses honesty, avoiding playing the field, so to speak. Like, Filipinos should be upfront about if they're dating multiple people. Mm-hmm. Is that individualism versus collectivism thing coming up again?
Absolutely. Western cultures, because they emphasize individual choice, they tend to have stricter expectations around monogamy.
Like, it's a given.
Pretty much. Monogamy is a sign of commitment, loyalty, huge EE in Western relationships.
So if a Filipino is used to a culture where maybe dating's more fluid, that could be a tough adjustment.
Definitely. The key is understanding that what's acceptable in one culture could be a deal breaker in another.
And that's where communication comes in, huh?
Huge. It's not just about what you want, but why certain behaviors are important in your culture.
Now, one other point she made, jealousy. Specifically, how Western men react to, like, looking at other women.
Right, and this is where those cultural norms about displays of attraction come in.
Okay, unpack that for me.
In some cultures, a guy glancing at an attractive person, it's no big deal.
Just a look.
Yeah. But in other cultures, that same glance could be super disrespectful, like a sign of disloyalty even.
Wow. So you're saying it's like these cultural lenses are creating different realities.
Exactly. And it's not about judging those realities. It's about understanding them. No culture is right or wrong. It's just recognizing that societies express and interpret behaviors differently. And that awareness is huge for cross-cultural relationships.
Speaking of interpretations, the Filipina Pea also talked about communication styles.
Yeah.
She described Western men as more direct, blunt even.
Yeah, it's what we call low context versus high context communication. Yeah. Western cultures, they value clear, unambiguous language.
Get to the point.
Right. It's about efficiency. Now, in many Asian cultures, it's more high context. Lots of nonverbal cues, shared understanding.
You don't want to rock the boat?
Exactly. Direct confrontation can be seen as rude, even aggressive.
So a Filipina might hear a Westerner's bluntness and think, he's angry. When really, that's just how he talks.
Totally. And that's why the Filipina Pea's advice is so important. Don't mistake bluntness for aggression. Different communication styles don't automatically mean different levels of respect or care.
So how do you navigate these communication differences? Is it all about, like, walking on eggshells and overthinking every word?
No, not at all. It's more about awareness, creating a space for open communication.
Like, just talk about it.
Exactly. Ask questions, express your own preferences, and be open to learning from each other's perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about building that bridge, brick by brick with open, honest dialogue.
And sometimes those bricks are, well, kind of awkward topics, like finances.
Oh, right.
The Filipina Pea, she warns about treating foreigners like walking ATMs.
Yeah. That's a touchy subject for sure, but important to discuss.
Okay.
It all boils down to cultural norms around money, financial independence, reciprocity, even long-term planning.
She makes this really striking analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Asking for money all the time, it's like constantly needing a blood transfusion. You might get it once, twice, but eventually the donor, they're going to be drained and resentful.
That's a powerful image. It really drives home the point. You want a relationship built on respect, understanding, not, dependence.
Not a one-way street.
Exactly. And this idea of partnership, it applies to trying new things too.
Filipina Pea talks about that, right?
Yeah, being open to new experiences, food, hobbies. She even touches on, intimacy.
Okay, let's go there. She suggests that Western men, maybe because they've had more privacy, exposure to different ideas, they might have a, let's say, broader range of interests in the bedroom.
Right. So it's not just personal preference. It's also those societal norms, how they shape our understanding of intimacy. Like, think about it. Access to sex education, exposure to different media, even religious influences. All these factors play a role in what's considered, normal or acceptable.
So for a Filipino woman coming from a more conservative background,
it could be a real culture shock, exciting for some, anxiety-inducing for others.
I bet.
It's crucial to remember there's no right way to approach intimacy, as long as both partners feel comfortable, respected.
Consent and communication are key, basically.
Absolutely. And ultimately, the Filipina Pea's advice comes down to communication, respect, and being willing to, step outside your comfort zone.
Try new things.
Exactly. That's a good recipe for any relationship, no matter the cultural background. It's about creating that safe space to explore, to talk openly, where both partners feel empowered to express their needs, their desires.
So we've talked about a lot. Family dynamics, communication styles, finances, even, bedroom preferences. For our listener who's maybe trying to navigate this whole cross-cultural relationship world, what are the key takeaways?
I think the biggest one is understanding is huge. It's not seeing cultural differences as obstacles. It's seeing them as chances to grow, to connect, to understand ourselves and the world better.
Not erasing those differences, but embracing them.
Exactly. Celebrate the richness, the complexity that different cultures bring. Use those differences as building blocks for a stronger relationship.
A more resilient relationship.
And ultimately a more fulfilling one.
Yeah, like they say, right? Variety is the spice of life. And relationships are no different.
Totally. But, as interesting as the Filipina Pea's advice is, it got me thinking about the other side of this whole thing.
What Western women want in a partner.
Exactly. We've been focused on, Western men and their expectations.
But what about the women they're dating?
Right. How do their cultural backgrounds, shape their relationship ideal?
That's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
But seriously.
So are Western women looking for those same things? Companionship, loyalty, respect? Or are their expectations more influenced by, that individualism we talked about?
That's the big question, isn't it? Think about it. Western women, especially in recent decades, they've made huge strides. Education, financial independence, social roles, all that.
So how has that changed what they want in a relationship?
Right. Are they looking for something more egalitarian?
A true partnership.
Exactly. And then how do those expectations line up with, maybe clash with, the values of men from other cultures?
Ooh, interesting.
It's a really fascinating question to explore. It could tell us a lot about, how relationships are changing in a globalized world.
We've really only scratched the surface here.
Totally.
It's not just about understanding Western men. It's about understanding the women they're in relationships with.
And that's what makes this whole topic so interesting.
There were just endless perspectives and experiences to consider.
Every relationship is unique, right?
Yeah.
Shaped by individual personalities and cultural influences. There's no one right answer. But by exploring these different perspectives, I think we can really start to appreciate how complex human connection is, especially across cultures.
Well, listeners, we've given you a lot to think about today. We went deep into the wants and needs of Western men, saw things through the Filipina Pea's unique lens, uncovered